Hi, I'm Tom Minges, the Stewardship Chair at St. Andrew, and along with my committee members, Joni Flum and John Seitz, I want to thank you for participating in the annual appeal that St. Andrew is now completing. There are a lot of aspects of something like an annual appeal, but the one I want to thank you for, especially now, is the obviously thoughtful and prayerful way that so many members considered and made their pledge. It was clear to us that this was a thoughtful and prayerful endeavor. People didn't respond automatically, by and large, but they really considered the plea that we had made in our material. They really considered their role in the church and they responded accordingly, and that's wonderful. Thank you so much for doing that. If by chance you haven't yet had a chance to make your pledge, please do so. It's very important for the future of our church. And as we come to the end of 2020, it's pretty clear that this has been a challenging year in quite a few ways. COVID has certainly made a big impact on so many things at St. Andrew, so many things in life, of course, but it has also impacted our finances. So, as the year comes to an end, if you are able to make a special offer to St. Andrew, that would be tremendously helpful to us. Once again, thank you for participating in our appeal. Thank you for continuing to support our church in so many ways.
Good afternoon. Chris Wilson here from St. Andrew Christian Church, and here to talk to you about worship, and in particular the sermon for this coming Sunday. This Sunday will be the final Sunday of our Pesky Parables series we've been doing this will be the 5th week of 5 weeks. And this coming Sunday is probably one of the most familiar, it's probably in the top 2 or 3 parables, most known parables. Other than like the parable of the Good Samaritan or the parable of the sower, we have this parable of, it's called a lot of different things. It's called the parable of the lost son, the parable of the prodigal son, the parable of the prodigal son and his brother. It's called a lot of different things. Because it's so familiar, sometimes we think we know more about the parable than we actually do. This parable, as you may know, is in chapter 15 of Luke, and it's kind of in a series of parables that deal with the theme of being lost. You have the lost sheep and the lost coin, and now you have this parable lost, considering or taking into account this family. And I've shared before that when we read a story in the Bible, our tendency in that story is we want to identify ourselves with someone in the story. And we want to identify ourselves usually with the person that's most advantageous in the story because it makes us feel a little better when we do that. But I must admit that this parable of this family, this father and 2 sons, that I have to admit that through my own progression of life and the different stages I've been, I have been the older brother. I have a younger brother. I've been the older brother, and for years I identified with the older brother of how can that younger brother seem to get away with everything that I never got away with. And then later in my life, when I became a father of 2 kids, my perspective of this story changed even again. And so how we identify ourselves in the story can make all the difference. I want you to maybe take on in preparing for this week is, what if you identified with someone that's in the story but not really in the story? What if you identify with someone that's not family in the story? And that might be a different angle by which we look at this story and maybe uncover what Jesus is really getting at. We have the lost sheep and the lost coin, maybe give some hints of what's going on in this story, but my guess is when you add a family dynamic and all the interplays that happen between parents and children, the complexity of the story ramps up quite a bit. And one of the things I totally love about the story is we really don't know how the story ends. We get to the end of the parable and think, that's where you're leaving me? You didn't even finish the story, Jesus. And it's left a lot to us of how we're going to interpret and reflect on this family's experience and what it means to us individually, but I think Jesus was really talking to the community of faith. What does this story have to say to the church, to the believing body that follows Jesus? So we'll dive into this parable more deeply. We'll explore some of the characters and even maybe identify some characters outside of the story that can help shed light on this parable that I'm calling a parable of dysfunction and health. Join us on Sunday.